Heroforge Face Guide from hair to eyes to decals. Yes, I have kind of done this before. It was my second ever video created, but it was also an unedited steaming pile of horseshit, so I'm here to do it again, but better this time. So the absolute first step is obviously just choosing the face that you're going to use, and don't be fooled into thinking that these ones here are the only ones that you can use. Even if you're just making a baseline human characters, then you have a lot more options here. Like the first four, obviously orcish features, goblinoid features, like for a chunky character, for a Josh Brolin character, for a comical big nose mafia character, But anyway, in this case, let's just use the baseline heroic features to give ourselves something easy to work with to start off with. Now, when I make characters, I like to try and pull away from the cartoony look that Heroforge naturally has. So the very first thing I will go into is the eyes. So let's say this guy has blue eyes. This right here, I've said this many times, this does not look like realistic eyes. You look in a mirror and you tell me, do your eyes look as fucking massive as these ones do? The answer is probably no. So the first thing you do is, from the baseline, you pull down the size from 35 to somewhere in between 27 and 29. I'll just go for 29 right now, because I think that's what looks the most realistic overall. And finally, you have the eye color itself, which I think is a little bit too bright, so you can dull this down a little bit. And these three all work differently within the eye. For example, like you will see the outlines with the low get darker. You can see it's a very subtle difference, whereas the high here, if I pull this around, if I pull this all the way down, then the inner area of the eye will be very dark, but we can keep that bright because it makes it pop a little bit. And then this one is the main one. And this is the one we want to use if we want to dull down the eye. Now the next step is obviously choosing the baseline skin color, and which one you choose depends on the character you have, obviously, but I'll just go for like a middle ground between dark and pale now and take this like slightly tanned skin. And this will be important because this color here, medium deep 5, we're going to be duping this repeatedly for everything else that we do. Now you might ask, why do I not edit the skin color more? And I do actually on my own skin colors here. I do have slightly edited versions, but like, to be honest, if there's any baseline color in Heroforge that is pretty good, it's the baseline skin colors, and I don't tend to change them very much. We will be changing other things with them soon, but the thing is, you'll see if what changes. Like the high layer on skin will affect stuff like this, and this is very, if you want to make a face look dirty, you can lower the high down, because then it kind of looks like they've got like almost like coal dust on their nose and stuff like that, but it doesn't look very natural if you just want the normal skin color. And the same goes for low. The low one is good if you're kind of making a character look skinny, but right now we're not even using the gaunt features or whatever, because it will make these like lower areas look darker and deeper. So hair, this is one that I get quite a few questions about as well. Let's just take a baseline hair to begin with. So we'll take truffle black, just the most standard black you can find, and there's a lot of issues to begin with this hair. First of all, hair does not look this shiny. Like this right now looks like some kind of weird chocolate cake, which is not really how you want hair to look. And I know what they're going for. The reason it's shiny is because they want to make the hair look healthy, like in those fucking commercials and shit, but that's not what we're going for. So we're going to pull the roughness all the way up, like remove it completely. Also, don't touch the fuzz. It gives a different kind of shine, but it's not really one we want here. Now this color is also very like mono color, if that makes any sense. So we'll go into the high layer. We'll make this a little bit less orange, a little bit more brown, and then we pull this up, and now we're getting a very decent hair color, because now it looks like it's the same hair color all the way through, right? But the lower layers of the hair are more dark. But we're not finished yet. We are going to go into decals as well, and we will apply something like this. And as I said before, now we dupe this original hair color, and we can make the hair, the higher layer, even a little bit brighter again. And now we get like this kind of very distinct hairline here that looks more defined than the rest of the hair behind. And then this back layer here, you can probably color this with the same color as the first one. Alright, now we're getting into the more interesting stuff, which is the face decals. You're going to decals into color, into the face here, and then you have these 5 layers here, and all of these layers, one goes atop of the other. So the highest layer is E and will go over everything else. As for example, you can see if I take the skin color and I color this, now you see the feathering tattoo that we got here goes over the top of the roan that we had on the layer B. Bear in mind when you're doing this that you will have to change the order up sometimes, because it can be easy to get it wrong the first time. Okay, the first and best thing you can do to get rid of this very blank, cartoony face that they have here in Heroforge is you put on eyeshadow. And yes, you do this even for male characters. We're not using this as makeup, we're using this as a way to darken the eye sockets to make them look more realistic. So you'll copy the original skin color. Now you pull the middle layer down a little bit, you pull the lower layer down quite a fair bit, and the same goes for the high layer. And now with the low and the high layer pulled quite dark and the middle layer just a little bit darker than the baseline skin color, we smack it on here. And you'll see why specifically the 3 layers are like this. So if I pull the middle layer all the way down, now it does look like makeup, which is not what we want. The middle layer controls this kind of outer area here. The lower layer, however, you'll see that specifically impacts the eyelid, which that part is fine being a little bit darker, and the high layer, I'll show you, also controls the eyelid, but like a little bit more subtly. So that's why the low and the high are specifically the ones we touch, while the middle one stays mostly the same. And as for the under eye, we obviously don't want this to be as dark, so we do it like this. Again, it starts to look like makeup. So basically we repeat the same process again, but we do it a little bit more subtly. We pull this one down a little bit again, and a little bit again, but not as much as we did with the brow. So now we have 3 skin colors overall. We have the base one, we have the brow, and then we have the under eye, and these are used just to darken the eye sockets. Now the next trick is something that you'll probably mostly want to use on male characters, but that is stubbles. And this is one of those things that, like, obviously I'm not the only person who does it, but it's something that I've seen a lot of people not do for a very long time, and I don't really understand why, which is they only use one stubble. So like people will use this and then they'll leave it at that, and like, even if I color this, right, even if I take my dark truffle black 2 here and I put this on, this doesn't look right. Like, it doesn't. What you want to do is you want to combine stubbles on top of each other. So the 2 ones that I use the most is stubble 6 and stubble 4. So if you put on stubble 6 to begin with, it's the lower layer, and then you go into layer C here, sorry, and then you put on stubble 4, and then you color that in the same color. Now you get a fairly complete looking stubble. But it gets better than this. If we go into hair color again, we take this one up here and we make this a little bit whiter like this, and then we do the same on this one like that, and we can even do it all the way back here. Now you can see we're making this character look older all of a sudden. What if you want a Negan stubble, or shall I say a salt and pepper stubble? So you have the 2 main stubbles here, and then you put on something additional over the top of it, like for example this one, stubble 9. And now we take our baseline skin color or hair color, this one up here, and then we copy it and we make the upper layer white and the middle layer more white as well, and we put this down. And now you can see here along the jawline and on the chin we have all these little white hairs poking out, which does make the character look older. And obviously if we change the face now to the gaunt features, yeah, now you'll see, now we actually have like an old looking dude here. So here we have a female character now, and the first thing we do is obviously we give her the same color that we did the other one, and we go from there. There's a few other things that people generally want to do on female models, and obviously it depends, but for example, something you can do if you want emphasis on the lips, which is more common in feminine faces, is you use the ombre lip, and then basically you would duplicate the original skin color. You want to drag the entire color towards a more orangey red, and then a little bit paler, and you put it on the middle there. And then we can duplicate the original color again. Again, we drag it towards red. This time we want it to be darker, so we can drag the whole thing down like this. We can continue to drag it down. And now you see we have a much more detailed looking pair of lips, and you can use the same thing to make lipstick. So if you want to do lipstick, you drag this all the way into red, right, and then you would drag it up towards here, and then obviously you would do the same with the inner side like this, and you drag it towards just a lighter form of pinkish kind of red. Obviously this works even with the ombre lip decal, but the ombre lip decal will add a lot more detail to it. Following that, there is obviously eye makeup, which you can, I would usually put on top of the eyeshadows. I would still have these darkened eye sockets, which you can make even darker if you actually want it to look like makeup. For example, I could take the pale skin brow we have here, and I could make this like a more reddish orange as well, and now you see the kind of effect it has. Additionally, we can screw around with making this metal as well, and then we could make it shinier. Like if I remove the skin, make it metal, lower the roughness a little bit, drag this into red like this. Now you see the kind of effect we achieve here. Using the metal option up here is very effective for makeup in specific, because it has that kind of very deep shaded and dark and shiny look to it. But this is obviously only using the eyeshadow. So if I go all the way back, now we can just smack on something like this over the top of it. So there's a few different options over here. This one, small eyelash makeup, is the most basic one. There's obviously this one, the Egyptian one, then there's a slightly more bombastic one with these flares here. Now, the differences are very small, so it obviously kind of depends on what kind of character you're making, but generally you can make these black, and if this looks like too much, just lower the roughness a little bit, make it a little bit less shiny. You can also drag this up into brown a little bit, and now it's a slightly more subtle look to the makeup that doesn't look like it's quite so, you know, plastered on, you know. Like sometimes you want a character to look like they're wearing makeup without making it look like they're just about to go clubbing, you know. Now another decal that you also can use on male characters, yeah, there's these cheek ones. So there's like blushes that are, most of these look a little bit like too much in my opinion. You can use them, this one especially I do use sometimes, but what I'm gonna use as an example now is the editorial blush here, and you can use this on a male character to make a character's cheeks look more defined. So what I mean by that is, if we duplicate the original color, we make it a little bit darker, and we smack it down here, now you see it kind of just makes the cheekbones more defined, and that works just as well on male characters. Now what we have here is pretty much finished, right? But there is we still have one decal left to play with, and there's a lot of things you could do here. For example, I mean you could have scars, but I'll show more of that later. Freckles, sorry, they were all the way at the top. The freckles option is obviously very nice. I'm a big fan of them adding this. It was quite recent, so again, you can just duplicate the skin color and drag it down a little bit, make it a little bit darker like this, and it will look pretty natural. However, I actually think that the freckles will look better if combined with another decal. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna reset this from the beginning. I'm gonna remove all of the face decals, and I'm gonna do it in another order. We are first going to apply this one, under eye blush. Then above that we will put on the eyeshadow. And above that we will put on the makeup I was talking about earlier. Above that we can put on the lip thing. There it is. And finally, of course, the freckles themselves. So now we want to start by reapplying a lot of these colors that we've used. And now, as you can see, by combining the first decal here, the under eye blush, with the freckles, we get this kind of very nice, like, faded zone where we combine the eyeshadow with the under eye blush. They have the exact same color, which is a slightly brighter version of the brow here, and it kind of covers halfway down the cheeks, and it melds into these freckles. And this, in my opinion, is a very, very nice combination for a female face. Obviously, there's a ton of different combinations you can use, but this is just one example that I'm showing you of how you can do it. And then there's obviously hair, and again, this follows the exact same principles as the male character's hair. I'm not gonna do anything really different here. There you go. That's how I would make a more grounded, you know, realistic looking and detailed looking female face. Now, you might have noticed before that when I applied the freckles, I also needed to apply the under eye blush, because, you know, I thought it looked better that way. So I lost now the cheek things. There's no actual cheek shading down here, because I don't think that is one of the more necessary ones, but this is a general trend with decals in that you only have 5 of them. Please, Skycast will give us 10 or something. That'd be nice, but you only have 5 right now, which means you have to sacrifice some for other things. So now, in this case, if we wanted to apply something like scars, we would be in a bit of trouble, because there's something we're going to have to remove here. The most noticeable parts is obviously like the eyeshadow the freckles and the lips. So the most obvious candidate to remove would probably be the under eye blush. Like if we remove that, you see the difference, and the difference is quite big. Like this is why I applied it in the first place. There's another problem with that, and that is that now it's the lowest layer again. That is all the way down here. Generally with scars you want it to be on a higher layer. However, since all of this is makeup, I think we're saved in this scenario because it makes sense that you'd be painting over the scars, right? So if we apply something like this, now the issue here is obviously the freckles goes over the top of it. We might want to swap the places around a little bit, you see? And I will speed this part up so that you don't have to watch it all. Okay, so now we have fixed the order to the point where the freckles are at the lowest layer and the scar is right below all the makeup, which is the C, D, and E options. So the scar wants to be on the B layer now if we want it to look realistic. So we could, for example, use this one. If we want to make a realistic scar color, we just dupe this, we make it way brighter. Scars on really pale skin can be a little bit hard sometimes. And obviously now we have this problem with this lip thing here, which is why you might, well, in this case you might want to pick a different one. And if we really want the scar to stand out, we can also make it a darker color instead of a brighter color. So a dark scar color would be something like this. We drag these down all the way, and now you kind of see what we're going for here. And obviously, whether you want bright scars or dark scars, that's up to you. Generally, fresher scars tend to be darker and old scars tend to be lighter, but that's not an exact science. Now, since we're moving into slightly more advanced options, on this model, he looks fairly old, but there's one thing we can still do to make him look older, right? And that would be wrinkles, which is kind of awkward to achieve, but you can. So the first thing is we're going to need 2 extra slots underneath everything. So we'll remove stubble 6. Now it looks like he has a slightly thinner stubble, but we're just going to have to live with that. Secondly, we remove the eyeshadow of the original eyes, and we instead put on this. And I've showed this before briefly in a tip video, but not in its dedicated form. So we lower the color of this, we give him a dark version of the skin color here. Then on the second layer we put on the same the face war paint again. We remove this one, and then we paint these with basic skin color as well. Now you can see the underneath layer is giving these kind of lines, and I agree they're not perfect wrinkles, but it's the best we have. And also, since we removed the eyeshadow, that's what we're going to use this 5th layer here for, since we still had 1 extra available. And there you go. Now this guy's old face looks kind of complete, but obviously it's difficult because, again, we only have 5, and there's a lot more things we could do if we had more extra options. So now, what if we want some kind of, you know, mid-battle, like, dirty, gritty face? Then again, we're gonna have to sacrifice a few things. So the first thing, this time we'll remove the upper stubble here, the stubble 9, and now he no longer has a salt and pepper beard, but we're gonna have to live with that. So if you want extra decal spots, you could first of all just give him a proper beard. That way we could remove the stubble altogether, and that gives us a lot more, you know, spaces to work with. So if we take away the beard, you can, by the way, combine. As you'll see, we are losing a little bit of detail here under, but we're just gonna have to live with that for now. So now we have 4 available decal spots after I color this in. Okay, so making a face look dirty. This is obviously the most obvious one. You take this one, you just color it with like a brown or a black or some kind of dirty cloth color that's pulled the roughness all the way down, fuzz all the way down. But this right here, like, obviously we have 3 more spots to work with, so there's a lot more we can do. First of all, you could apply some kind of scarring. So which order we do it in kind of depends on what you want. For example, if you want the dirt to be above the scars, then you would wait with this. You would smack on something, you know, you can place this scar on like this. And then you put the dirt over the top of it, and you'll see that the scar is kind of faded behind all the dirt. But then there's obviously the other way of doing it, which is the scar on top. So that would be presumably a fresher scar. It's this one. And now in this case, if we're using some fresh blood colors like this will go, since this goes directly over the dirt, it's not going to be smudged out by it. And in addition to this, now we could duplicate one of these eyes. So we copy the eye and we pull the eyeball all the way down into red
like this, and we smack it on specifically on the right side, and now you see what we kind of have going here. This eye looks obviously a lot more wounded than the other, and now we could copy the brow color from before, make it a lot darker, and put it only on one side here. We could copy the under eye color as well, make that one darker as well, like this, and now it's starting to kind of look like a bit of a bruise, you know, that's going along with this, and now we're getting this very nice asymmetrical look, and we're still just using the same eyeshadow decal. Like, the difference between this eye and this eye is still pretty much just one eyeshadow along with the scar, but we still have one more decal we can work with. There's a very nice combination you can do specifically with the dirt face and the streaks, like the crying face. You will see that, if we just color this with normal color like this, obviously you see the problem in that it kind of goes through everything we put up previously, which is why we're not going to keep it. But you also see how it looks like there's lines going through the dirt. So if you had the dirt on a lower layer originally, if I, for example, do this quickly. So now we have here several layers of dirt on this, right? And if we then put on a crying face over the top of this, so something, where is it now? This here. And then we made the color of this normal, like the skin color, like this, you'll suddenly see how it looks like this is a much more subtle way of showing that a character has cried rather than putting like blue streaks down their face or whatever. And in my opinion, this is one of the coolest effects of like if you're making a character that's been like after battle or whatever. But if I just reset all this for now, something that I've also been asked how to do is just in general, like a crying face, you could, you know, you drag down the red a little bit because crying eyes are usually redder. This one a little bit more faded. And then if we put on a crying face to begin with, and much like we did with this guy's Wrinkles earlier on, if we copy this and we make it darker, put it down here like this, yeah, now you can probably see what I'm going for. And then we put on another layer of the same crying face again, and this time we just color it like skin, and voila. Now you see these little subtle lines here. This is what happens when you stack decals on top of each other, and it's a very nice effect. I mean, I don't think anybody can deny that this looks a lot better than trying to make tears look like this, because that just Anyway, moving back to the original model, since we're not going to use the crying face here because there's a lot of like stacking problems with the scars and the blood and all that, we're going to remove that for now. We're going to give him back his beard because I felt like that grit went a long way. So now we have one more option for something we can add to this guy's face to make it look grittier, and lines through the scars, color them like that. We could add bruises like this, we could color that would be nice. Or we could simply put on, you know, a nose bleed, and we take a dried blood color like this. This is just the blood color but darkened, with pulled down with the roughness of 0, and now it kind of looks, you know, again, like he's been in battle. It doesn't show all that much because the beard covering it, but it does add some detail to the mouth, which we also lost earlier because of the fact that we removed the stubble underneath. And also, again, if we want the character to look gritty, we can have this guy open his mouth a little bit, you know, growling, and instead of these pristine white teeth, oh my god, can it stop fucking shooting me backwards, we put these on, and then we go into mix and this teeth color. Now teeth is weird, teeth only really tends to react to the color of the high layer, but you can have some subtle difference, like if we pull the lower layer down to red and all the way down dark, you'll see now the area between the teeth is a bit darker. And this here only makes a marginal difference as well. It's pretty much just a high layer. Now, as a final touch to make this face look appropriately gritty, we, instead of having the hairline be dark up here, we would want it to be very bright. So if we take one of the hair colors and we copy it and we drag it down, and this time we're actually going to up the roughness to make it look sticky and dirty like this. And we do the same thing to the top of the beard here. So now it kind of looks like there's this mud almost that's hit the front of his hairline. And that goes a long way in making the dirt spread. And also the ears, if the ears look a little bit too bright and pristine, we just copy the color of the ears, we drag it down a little bit, we smack it down like this, and now it blends a little bit better with the mud. And you can do the same thing for the neck. Now I want to stress that there's a lot more things you could be going over. Like, I'm only kind of scratching the surface here, and I'm still going to give a few more examples, but like, just you shouldn't ignore ignore all these decals, right? Like the ones I'm using right now are not the only ones that should be utilized. For example, if you put on like a hat on a character, you know, let's say we smack on this new hat we got not too long ago, this, you might want to have some extra shading on the face. Then you could use a decal like, where is it? You could use a decal like this one, and you could, again, take a dupe skin color, darken it a little bit. Obviously now this goes over the top of all the other stuff we put, but, and this also works with helmets, by the way. Like if you have a visor like this one, and yeah, now you see the area here looks darker than it would if we didn't have that decal there, and it does add this realistic layer of shadowing to the face. Now let's say you wanted to make like a burned face. We'll use this little side dummy model for this as well. Like, there's a lot of different options you have for burns, right? Like, there's the most obvious one, which is this, but however, I would still recommend you put on eyeshadow underneath. So you start with the eyeshadow, just because, again, you want on the other eye to still look decent, so you'll start with that, and then on the second layer, you can put on the one-sided burn mark like this, which, again, you dupe the skin color, you make it a little bit darker and redder. In the middle, you put that down there, and then you do the skin color again. You make it a little bit less dark and red, like this. And you put it on as the outer layer, and you see now the kind of faded look we're getting here. And you could pull the middle layer a little bit up to be more subtle if you want. You see the difference here? It's just like before, and then the lower layer doesn't really make much of a difference. The higher layer, however, does. So you want to be careful with that one. This is obviously not really enough though, and this is where these kind of niche decals can come to play, like these old ones here. They generally don't see all that much use, you know, like these really weird ones, like this one for example. You can color all of these things separately, right? So you could color this, you could kind of apply, you see now it looks like we have burns on only one side of the face here. Perhaps something like this. Yeah, now we're getting somewhere. Make these normal skin colors on this side, and then we continue to burn just this side of his face, and now you see we're getting kind of this two-face thing going on here. Now, for fear of this video being like longer than 30-40 minutes, I'm gonna wrap it up there. But what I can do is I can show some quick example models of the things I've not already gone over. And additionally, all of the models I'm about to show will be provided as links in the description below for anyone who wants to use them as resources as well. So the first thing that I wasn't able to go over is that the stereotypical fat face, and this is achieved by picking the goblinoid features, and then also in the horns section I also have a keyring that is colored like skin and twisted underneath his neck. And I went over this in one of my tip videos, but he's also got one of the blushes with this kind of red face, because that's common in people who are very chunky. And there's also some freckles and these teeth here for a little bit of extra detail, you know, it's nothing super advanced. But again, the link to this will be in the description below. Secondly, for this here vampire lady, we have a few things that I didn't go over. The first thing is that you can use the nosebleed, but cover up the areas of the nose and then color the parts of the mouth to get this kind of like bloody stuff for a vampire. And also I have a body decal here just to get some extra parts of that. Secondly, as you'll be able to see here, the eyes are glowing, which so you go down here in the eyes, you pull up the glow all the way up, but then the problem with glowing eyes usually is that the whites glow more than the actual irises, which is why when you're making eyes really glowy, you want to pull down the eyeball all the way down to dark like this, and it will look a lot better, especially on something like a vampire like this. And also, instead of always using eyeshadow as the method of like getting darkness around the eyes, you can use the burn scars that I showed before. You can actually use these, but only the inner parts, as you can see. If you use only the inner parts, that also kind of looks like an eyeshadow, but it looks a little bit more evil. So there's different variations of these, and you can use the bruises for this kind of thing as well. Now, I mentioned it earlier, but I didn't actually use it when I was making the gritty face, because that was meant to be more of like a battle kind of gritty. But in this case, I've gone all out on the dirt, and I've actually darkened the high layer of the skin color, as I showed at the start, to give him like the sooty nose, and I have the crying streaks down here through both the stubble and the dirt and the bruise, and then also this entire like brown half of his face here, that is actually like the main body decals, so similarly to the vampire blood streak. So yeah, here is a more extreme example of the like gritty battle face that I demonstrated before, like, but I've gone a little bit further here, and as you can see, again, I'm using the main body decal here, and I can move it back and forth a little bit to see. And basically it's an extra layer of blood, and you can't always use this. Sometimes you're not going to have the option to, but if you can use it, it always adds a lot. And as you can see, otherwise I've just used the same tricks here again with the blood, etc. Here again is another character who suffered from burn scars, but this time I've gone a little bit further in that I like how I did on the singed model that I made a while back. I have kind of comboed it with the body decal here. And again, the link to this will be in the description below, so enjoy. And one more thing, I've gone out of my way to kind of make like a two-face yin-yang kind of thing here, and this face actually like has makeup on it. It's meant to look very pretty, whilst this face is like, you know, it has a milky eye, which also is something I didn't have time to go over in the video, but you can use this resource if you want access to that. Now, as for the old character link I'll provide, I showed most of these tricks before, you know, with the salt and pepper beard and the wrinkles and the hair and all that. However, one thing that I forgot to mention was that these hairstyles that you pick are very, very useful for simulating hair. You'll see that the one I have right now, it has kind of like a receding hairline, and not all of the hairstyles have this. So the one I used before was this one, and it has a kind of even hairline all the way up here, so it's not really ideal for this. And obviously if you pick something like this, the character is going to look really, really young. So you want something that really kind of like stretches back here, you know, makes the character look like they've got some years on them, you know, they're kind of balding a little bit. Now for the female like Freckle-Face Combination that I showed previously, I'll be providing this link, which also has some of these like metallic undertones for the makeup going on here, as well as like different varying tones of roughness between like the freckles and the lips and the skin and all that. And of course, as for the male equivalent, I'll just be providing this fairly basic example with just the layered stubbles, a bruise, some old scars, the hair, and all that. It's nothing all too complicated. This is probably the most simple one of the ones I'll provide. Alright, I hope that you found this useful, and I can only apologize that I haven't gone over everything. You know, there's a lot of different combinations. I haven't even touched on tattoos yet, and you know, we might do them in a future video, but for now, if you found this useful, then please press like, and if you haven't, then by all means press dislike, and until next time.